A lot of the times, their relationship with that language is not one built on love or appreciation, but one built on necessity. OK, puis si jamais vous voulez me rejoindre moi personnellement, parce que c'est que je parle français, vous avez l'opportunité de m'envoyer un DM parce que mon Instagram est dans les coordonnées.
Envoie le boobies.
J'aimerais vous voir tous. Et si vous voulez coucher avec moi ce soir, c'est possible. Donc, je vous conseille.
This is a graph showing the percentage of French speakers in Quebec. Put simply, the language has been declining since 2001, even if slowly.
Told you it's your wheelhouse.
It's quite a hard thing to come to terms with. I mean, Quebec is the only province in Canada where the francophones make up the majority of the population. And for Quebecers, preserving the French language is the only possible safeguard for the survival of the Quebec identity and culture. So in a world where everything is dominated by English-speaking media, Quebec is trying to save their province from Anglicization. But to understand not only how, we must first understand the way in which French initially survived.
We live here. Both me and Preach speak French. Donc si vous êtes pas au courant, on parle français. Même chose pour Eric. Pour toi, c'est ta première langue, non?
Ben, ton nom? C'est pas ta première langue?
J'ai pas l'impression des fois parce que je parle
Non, parce que tu parles beaucoup plus anglais que tu parles français, mais c'est ta première langue.
Exact. So, we're very close to all this shit. All this.
We're not close.
We're here.
You win it. I'm not close with my girlfriend. Sometimes I'm inside her.
Inappropriate. Flag on the play. But it's his wife, so it's okay.
Flag on the play.
Yeah. For her, I'm gonna put this flag out. All right. Now let's keep playing.
Canada was initially a French colony within the larger territory of New France after being claimed in 1535. In 1974, the Official Languages Act was adopted, making French the sole official language of Quebec. But that wasn't enough though, so then came the Charter of the French Language, aka Bill 101 in 1977, requiring that French must be the language of legislation in the courts, administration, work, business, and education. So, with all this in place, you'd think that Quebec would be able to protect the French language from declining, right? Well, it's not that simple. In fact, it hasn't really worked. So, in total, the English-speaking population has increased by 1.2 million, while the French-speaking population has increased by 120,000, 10 times less. Now, this is obviously scary news for Quebecers. So, as a result, the nationalist coalition Avenir Quebec, or CAQ for short, was re-elected in October of 2022.
It sounds so much more appealing in English. In French, it's la CAQ. You imagine you got, hey, yo, what's your political party? Hey, la CAQ. What do you, hey, bro, these French Canadians are gay, bro. They out here screaming, CAQ. But yes, that is the current political party in power, la CAQ. They do.
Hey, yo.
They do loving their cock over here. Pause. La CAQ.
And gained a huge parliamentary majority on the premise that it would protect French as the dominant language in Quebec. As for how they plan to do this, immigration. See, declining birth rates among francophone Quebecers has been a key problem for quite some time. With less and less native Quebec people, you can't expect the language to be passed on to new generations as a first language they're most comfortable in. Even with immigrants coming to try and replenish these numbers, they're simultaneously contributing to the fall of French. More and more allophones, which in Canada are people who speak neither English or French as a first language, are choosing to learn English rather than French. In 2021, 25% of immigrants said English was their first official language spoken, up from 18% in 2016. The trend was reversed on the French side, from 61 to 55% in the same amount of time. Quebec Premier François Legault has claimed that speaking French at home is key to preserving the French language, and it's been calculated that that 55% needs to be closer to 90% in order to maintain the linguistic balance in the province.
I'll say this. When I get home, my mom, she speaks French, but not well. So for comfort purposes, we're just going to speak her native language, right? Growing up here, most children of immigrants identify more with their parents' culture than they do the local culture or Quebec identity.
Most of them.
Right? So naturally, you're going to have much more of an emphasis on preserving that aspect than anything else at home. I'll also say this. One of the primary reasons why I think people don't speak the French language at home is the media. Most of the media you be consuming is English. You know? People are not listening to music in French like that. They're not listening to TV shows in French like that. They're not supporting none of that shit.
Peep game. French is not in the top 100 of the songs listening here. If we watch the Spotify and stuff like that, the charts, they're not in the top 100.
No.
The first song, I believe, is in position 137 or 115. I'm not sure. But that's what it is. Like, even the people here, French. So if you talk about mostly French people, don't listen to French music.
So, you know, people want to see media that they identify with, music that speaks to them. A lot of the culture here just doesn't speak to the local population in terms of the arts. Unfortunately, that's just the reality. So they go elsewhere to find their television shows, their movies, their music, everything else. And so it's natural that when you're having conversations with people about these medias, you're going to oftentimes be speaking in the same language as these medias, right? It's funny because you would think that me being a mostly English speaker, I'd feel some type of way negatively about this. I'm actually very sympathetic. I think I understand the desire to want to preserve the culture.
Absolutely.
I respect it. And I also think French is a beautiful language.
Yeah.
But I can speak to the barriers of entry of why many people are uncomfortable speaking French, okay? As someone who had to deal with it myself.
Yup.
As a young man learning the French language, okay, there's a lot of elitism when it comes to the French language. That's very unique to French. If you don't use the perfect grammar, if you don't do this, there's like a very snobby attitude about mistakes.
That's how,
and that's unique in my experience to French.
But that's how French was made. French was made specifically hard
Yeah.
to be able to decipher between the people that were literate and the people that were illiterate.
Right.
So there's some rules in French that makes no sense and that they change every 5 years.
Yeah. So it's already like, honestly, like everything's got a gender. Le table, la chaise, everything is like super gendered. The verbs and the conjugation of all the Latin languages, I think it's probably the worst one in terms of its functionality. I think it's so stupid how a lot of it functions. It's not efficient. But I think the complexity of it adds to its beauty to some degree. It can be very poetic, okay? Which is beautiful, not functional. When I just want to communicate with people and I ain't doing poetry, it ain't the best language to use most of the time. Actually, no, let's stay on the first thing. If I'm you and I'm just learning, okay, and I'm already feeling a little bit ashamed because I'm trying to communicate and I sound like a baby, you making slight comments or you acting elitist about it, it doesn't encourage me to learn. If anything, giving people negative feedback as they're learning and they're new is the surefire way to make them quit entirely. You know how embarrassing it is for most people to be made fun of or to be mocked or to be like ridiculed because they just don't have it perfectly? That's a frustrating feeling. So there's that, okay?
The fastest language I learned was English.
Yeah.
5 months.
Wow. Fastest?
Fastest.
It didn't take long because you already listen to all these music and all these things that help you.
Yes, I understand.
But it's also
that.
simple.
But it's also simple. Compared to French, my guy,
Yeah.
even now,
Yeah.
I make less mistakes in English than French.
Yes.
By when I'm writing,
Yeah, yeah.
Bruh.
And the way that they
even
try
close.
to make you speak the language is not by making it more appealing.
nope. It's by forcing it
It's
down
by
your throat.
forcing it on you. They're making it mandatory at every stop. So what ends up happening, and this happened to me, and I only changed this over the last 6 years, is even though I was bilingual or trilingual my entire life, I never spoke French outside of a work setting because French was just a matter of function. It was a matter of whether it's mandatory or not. And when you force something on people, a lot of the times their relationship with that language is not one built on love or appreciation, but one built on necessity. And you don't want your language to just be a matter of necessity because once it's that, the moment people don't feel like it's necessary or in an environment where you can't make it mandatory, they will not speak it. Their relationship with the language is already negative. Pourquoi tu parles pas français? C'est-tu en anglais, ça? It's just like, oh my God. So all my interactions is just inherently negative.
You don't even understand the number of times
Yes.
that I was in a bus or somewhere
Bruh.
speaking to someone.
Larry, I already know where this is going. I'm mad for you because I know where this is going.
I know.
And you haven't gone there.
I
Go.
know. Speaking to someone that speaks English, it's friends. We're not in the work environment. We're not at school, right? We're just in a bus and I'm speaking French. I'm speaking English. And because I speak English with that accent and not their accent, they assume I don't speak French. And I can assure you, my French accent, if we talk about the accents in Quebec, my French accent is Quebec. So I speak to my friend and a motherfucker's gonna tap me on the shoulders like, hey, parle en français, on est au Québec, Sid. And I turn around and I'm like, ouais, pis ça, pourquoi tu veux savoir de quoi je parle? Pourquoi tu veux savoir, hostie, aujourd'hui, tabarnak, qu'est-ce qui se passe en moi et mon chum? And because I speak like that, because that's the exact same way that they speak, they're like, oh,
Yo, who cares? Mind your fucking business.
Mind your business.
It's a private conversation. But again,
I understand where it's from.
we going on tour. We coming to cities near you. We want to see you motherfuckers face to face.
Where you at?
We going to be doing shows all summer. Well, this summer we're doing 3 shows. We're doing Detroit, Pittsburgh, and Washington, D.C. But afterwards, we were going to England. We're going to be going all across America, Asia. So if you want to get tickets, make sure you guys go to the website. All right? Put your name so we can email you as soon as those tickets come out for your area. We won't bombard you with nothing else, okay? I promise.
Yeah.
We want to see you guys at the shows. We have meet and greets. We're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to be laughing, so it's going to be a good time. But we want to see you guys.
I understand where it's from and why they act like that. It's just very aggressive when it happens. You understand what I'm saying? I understand what happens in the workplace, and people are like, yo, we're the workplace. It's actually a law. Now that passed. Okay, everything, it's a law. So I understand it's not in the workplace. It's not at school.
Bro, they doing too much.
But now and then people just they feel entitled to jump in my confidence. Why do you need to understand what I feel like, or what I talk about, or what I'm talking about? You know, we're having a good day. Talk your shit over there and talk my shit over here. But that you do not understand the number of times that has happened.
That's crazy. I don't care what nobody says. I don't care what you're trying to preserve. A private conversation between two people is none of your motherfucking business. That should never be something that you legislate or get involved with. But what ends up happening is when you do shit like that, you make people resentful of the language and your cause. I am supportive of initiatives that encourage young students and all students in the province to go to school in French. I think it's better anyways. There's no reason you should be going to school in English. I'm sending my kids to a school in French, en français, 100%, parce qu'il n'y a aucune raison de les mettre en anglais. They're going to learn it regardless.
They're going to learn it regardless.
100%.
I don't care about that.
But these little things, it's just like, it makes y'all look culturally small-minded and petty.
Peep game. Just us doing this channel.
Yep.
I remember there was some time, because we're here.
Yep.
8 years ago, we were doing some videos in French. We're doing some videos in English. We're doing some videos in French. Now we stopped doing videos in French because we want to open ourselves to the world, right?
Yep.
Which worked. But the number of time people went in my inbox, went in our inbox, and be like, "Why don't you do your videos in French? You're in Quebec." I'm like, "Yes, but I'm also on the internet, which is through the world." That's like you're bothering me. At that time, a small YouTuber, for doing content in French, but you have Céline Dion live in Las Vegas, paying taxes in Las Vegas, making music in English, and whenever she does, you're like, "Oh my God, Céline, I be waiting for you," and you're super happy.
I'll say, I understand why people get some type of win when we do our content in French or English, because for them, they're like, yo, you have a chance to speak to some of the issues that we as like either, you know, people who don't get seen in the media talk about.
Then
right?
you do it.
But the truth is, I'm not willing to be your sacrificial lamb. I want to live my life. I want to be free.
Yep.
Honestly, because a lot of people out here are very small-minded and very insecure about a lot of stuff, everything is like very tightly closed off, culturally speaking. It's just like, and I hate doing the whole race thing, but that's just a fact. Like, you're not going to see black people make it out here that big. And if they do, they got to be the corniest, most fucking tap dancing niggas oftentimes. My experience. I know you might go there. I'll say it. That's what I feel.
Say that again?
Tap dancing niggas.
I'm in the media here. I have a whole ass
Which
career.
is why I tempered my comment.
Wait. That's fine. Which I have a career here, right?
Yeah,
but
billboards.
But the number of times I had to say no for project because it was not getting in line with how I thought.
Yeah.
And I say no. Well, I try it. I'm like, you know what? Let me try it. And I'm like, yo, this is some talking shit.
Yeah, it's just corny.
My God, you know what I mean? So I would say that you're not far off the truth.
But the reason why I bring all this up is like this is just one of the other reasons why the attachment to the language is not there. It's like from a media standpoint, everything is very like archaic and old school. They're running reruns of shows that America used to run 20 years ago. The one with the suitcase and they show the money or whatever. Like
they don't play reruns. They buy the concept and spin it off here.
America's Best Dance Crew just made it to Canada. Like it's just
not even that. You know what just made it to Canada in the first season?
What?
Survivors.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't have time for this shit. Like, bitch, you 30 years behind. So a lot of their methods aren't proactive, they're reactive. They're also failing because English is an incredibly invasive language because of American media. Yeah. Like, you can't escape it. I go to Africa and I see a New York Yankees hat. I go to everywhere and American media, logos are everywhere. This is not even an insult or nothing. It just is what it is. It's like, it's their own form of imperialism. So I understand why they feel threatened. You're in this geographical space where you're surrounded by nothing but English. It's normal to feel like they're coming from all sides. And they are. But I just don't think their methods for fighting it are as effective as they want it to be. That's all. But I think the crisis is there.
There is a crisis. There's definitely something to be done with that.
Yeah.
They do. But the way it translates is just so weird. Like, for example, if we talk about all the top YouTubers, that you have out there in Quebec, in all the lists, Abba and Preach is not there.
Even though I think we're probably the biggest, if not
one of the biggest.
We're definitely top five.
Top five. We're not in no no list because we speak English, so they're not gonna take in consideration what we do.
Yeah.
There's a guy called Kaytranada. In the States, he's getting some traction. In the UK, he's getting a lot of traction. Here, they don't really talk about that dude, even though that dude is from the town I'm from. You know what I mean? But because he speaks English, they're gonna take some time to acknowledge who he is really as a person. You make it big out there, you're gonna make it big here after. You know, eventually. But even that, not even. So it's like they don't consider us at all.
You know the best part about this whole video?
What?
We're here talking about how the French language is dying, and we're doing it
Doing
all
it
in
in
English.
English.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They're gonna love that.
We probably gotta get some news articles.
But the thing that
a
happened,
little bit of salt.
possible. But we get like there's a lot of Quebecers that are watching us and they don't care. I see them in the street, I see them and they're like, yeah, shout out to what you do. And les Français, des fois, ils mettent des commentaires en français. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I love it.
I appreciate that.
All my French speakers all over the world, I appreciate y'all.
Yeah, especially when you put some comments.
When it comes to the government, elected politicians and ministers will not be required to have any knowledge of English either. In terms of business, while companies providing goods and services with 50 or more employees are already required to serve their clients in French, the threshold has now been lowered to a minimum of 25 employees. The Office of the French Language may seem like a rampaging institution of linguistic extremism to some, but to others, it's a strong protector of an important culture. You need to remember that Quebec is a province that's basically surrounded by over 350 million speakers of another language.
That's not true. That's not true.
What's not true?
That is just surrounded by English speakers. There's a lot of French communities, huge French communities in Ontario. New Brunswick is pretty much a fully bilingual province.
I see what you're
It's
saying.
important to know.
I see what you're saying.
I think people talk about French and they act like Quebec is the only place. It's not. There's other areas, huge communities that are all entirely French. So I just wanted to make that clear because it's not a real accurate representation.
And it's not just any language either, it's English, the most powerful and global one out there. So these drastic measures sort of make sense. But of course, this bill hasn't been without controversy. Given its limiting of English, restrictive language requirements, and strict enforcement methods, the bill actually allows provincial legislators to override sections of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedom, which is basically like Canada's version of America's Bill of Rights. So those who feel their rights are infringed upon will not be able to use the overridden articles of the Charter to defend themselves. As a result, the bill has been criticized heavily. Executives at more than 150 companies have signed a letter to Legault, warning the Premier the law is threatening to...
Good video. Well done by this guy. I'll put the link in the description below if you want to go check that out. I don't think it's likely. I hope the French language sees its own resurgence in that regards. But I think until the media landscape changes, I don't think any of these laws, I think they might slow things down, but I don't think they're going to fix the issue. And I don't think they have the cultural relevance to make second, third, fourth generation immigrants feel more Quebecer than they feel whatever native country their parents are from. You know what I'm saying? If that changes, then I think they have a shot, but I don't think that's going to change. Because the way the media is set up and the way a lot of institutions are set up here, you feel alienated from the government or you feel alienated from the identity of the province.
I don't really have a take on that. I'm looking at what is going on. There's not much I could say. The fact that I'm doing my content, and they're not going to listen to whatever I say. So, whatever. I'm just moving on and doing my thing. You know what I mean? When I work in French, I work in French. When I work in English, I work in English, and that's that. I don't listen to people that are talking about, why don't you? I don't listen to them anymore. They're Casper the Friendly Ghost. They go right through me. I don't care.
You know what's crazy, bro? When we were doing our content in French or bilingual, I think it took us 2 years to hit our ceiling. And that was like maybe 200, 300,000 people.
Oh, that was before that.
And
on Facebook.
We've been doing the YouTube stuff for like super consistently for 3 years. And we're at 2 million. And we talking about a world tour. We talking about real money. We talking about bills paid. If there's any evidence that we got to spread our wings and let this shit go.
That's what I'm saying. But that's exactly that.
Like YouTube embraced us so fast.
At the end of the day, is this. All right?
Yo.
I do my content in French, I get paid. I do my content in English, I get paid. Whether you're happy for me, I get paid. If you're not happy for me, yeah, you guessed it. So I'm just still how you're trying to just pay my bills, like anybody is trying to do, and I pay my bills the way I want to pay my bills. It's not a persona that I have. Like most of the content that I actually do, most of my career is actually in French. It's just that one thing that I do in English is popping the fuck off. What happened?
Yeah.
So I do both. If we talk about amount of work, I do actually more work in French. So I feel like you can't do nothing. You can't say nothing. You cannot say nothing. I do more work in French than I do in English. So,
but your ceiling is just different.
My ceiling is definitely different.
You feel me? Like,
Yeah.
this shit just hit different when you do it in this language. You just
Yeah.
reach more people. You connect with more
Yeah.
people. There's more openness. I feel like if we did content in French, like there'd be people correcting us on like the words we're using. No bullshit. I ain't got time for this fucking shit, my nigga.
And the wonderful thing is that whenever I feel like speaking in French in this channel, I do.
Yeah,
no
I don't
problem.
shy away. I'm very proud of the fact that I love speaking
absolutely.
French. I love being in the streets and talking to French people. But as far as working and making money, as far as like having a real opportunity to break through a ceiling and see some actual audience, nah. They live in the dark ages. But that's me. En tout cas, c'est tout pour aujourd'hui. Donc, si vous avez des commentaires ou bien si vous voulez nous voir en tournée, les liens sont dans la description.
N'oubliez pas de vous abonner aussi. On a aussi la marchandise à vendre sur le lien qui est en dessous. Merci
Ok,
beaucoup.
puis si jamais vous voulez me rejoindre moi personnellement, parce que c'est que je parle français, vous avez l'opportunité de m'envoyer un DM parce que mon Instagram est dans les coordonnées ci-dessous.
Envoie le boobies.
J'aimerais vous voir tous deux. Et si vous voulez coucher avec moi ce soir, c'est potentiellement possible. Donc, je vous conseille...
Fuck outta here. Just thank you very much. Peace.
Je vous conseille...
T'es laid.